How you are fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning. How you are cut down to the ground, you who weaken the nations. Yet now you are brought down to the lowest depths.
When our ancestors began time, the sun sent his two sons, the Hearken, on a bolt of lightning to the fourth underworld, where people lived, stumbling in darkness. The Hearken grew trees for the people to climb up through the underworlds to the world of light. When they came into the sun at River Falls, the Hearken saw that they would not survive as they were. So they cut off their tails and algae hair and split their webbed fingers and toes.
Antiguos dioses que descendieron del cielo para tomar mujeres de las hijas de los seres humanos. El mito de los hijos de los dioses, los gigantes, que eran el producto de la relación sexual entre los dioses y las mujeres humanas. Y el mito de un gran cataclismo, en muchos casos buried under the ground at Pumapunku than what has been presented on the surface. Artifacts and secrets that somebody doesn't want dug up.
The research of Arthur Poznanski revealed that Pumapunku had been devastated in a massive flood that deposited at least 6 feet of sediment over the whole area. Seashells and tropical plant residues have been excavated in this layer of sediment. What we have in Pumapunku is evidence of the great flood of Noah. The stones themselves, just like the Sphinx of Egypt, show evidence of having been submerged and eroded underwater.
Apart from showing signs of having been swallowed up in a massive flood, the structures also appear to have been decimated in some kind of an explosion before they were buried in the sediment. Fragments of andesite are scattered all throughout the area as if a hellfire missile had struck the structure and blown it to pieces. This is actually concurrent with the narrative found in the book of Enoch concerning the offspring of the Watchers, which annihilated each other in an epic war that preceded the flood of Noah.
Of Mohenjo-Daro, we had what appeared to be streets that were laid out parallel and perpendicular to each other like a modern city. The homes actually had their own toilets, and they had a very sophisticated sewer system. So it looks like a very advanced city.
Ancient astronaut theorists have long thought this site was also the epicenter of a nuclear explosion that occurred more than 4,000 years ago.
Skeletons were found in dead positions as though there was an instantaneous death. And some of those skeletons, as measured by Soviet scientists, had 50 times the normal radioactivity. They found pottery that had been fused. Then walls were heated to such an extent they became vitrified or glass-like, suggesting some sort of ancient nuclear weapon involved.
According to the Mahabharata, the ancient holy text of the Hindus, white-hot smoke rose in infinite brilliance and reduced the city to ashes. Horses were burned by the thousands, and corpses were vaporized by intense heat.
And afterwards, a big silence came over the entire land, and people started to have boils on their skin. Their hair started to fall out, and their nails. There's only one thing that causes this, and that is radiation poisoning. It's radiation fallout.
So the question then becomes, when events happen in a place where there is extreme radiation, what impact does that have on human life or on other life present there? Could this explain, for example, why creatures were born with more than one arm or more than one leg, which then somehow became deified? Because even to this day, we know that in civilizations where anomalous human beings are born, somehow the touch of God is seen to be part of this creation.
According to the ancient Hindu texts, after the carnage at Mohenjo-Daro,
Know the answer, but we do know that within India and within Pakistan there are known zones of higher radiation than there are normal.
Proportion were 20 palms tall. The Indians had a tradition concerning these giants that they were people from before the flood, because giants of such huge size were never known to exist again. Others say that they were Sodomites, and that in one day fire fell from heaven and consumed them all. Speaking of the giants that existed in ancient times, in what is called today the peninsula of Santa Elena, Provincial Father Torquemada says these words in his book, Indian Monarchy. Speaking of, and in their land they bring their sick, and for evil purposes relating to love. They invoke the Huari, whom they say is the god of horses, when they go out to make their farms or houses, so that he lends them his strength.
Terrestrial life.
Many people involved in the New Age beliefs and practices have experiences with star people or star seeds, also known as indigo children.
They call them indigo children and say that some of these kids can even see the spirits of the dead.
It's the belief that certain people originated as extraterrestrials and arrived on Earth through birth or as a walk-in to an existing human body.
Star seeds are people, or souls more likely, that find it very difficult to be here on Earth because apparently Earth is not really their home.
Star seeds are highly evolved souls whose sole origin is from the stars. Star seeds are souls who originated in the Pleiades.
Star seeds are beings who have spent majority of their lives on different planets. The first sign that you are a star seed is that you've always felt like an alien.
It is a variant of the belief in alien-human hybrids. The question is, if these star people are visitors from another planet, how can these physical beings enter into the body of another person? This actually sounds more like the accounts we hear in the Bible of unclean spirits entering into human beings. Luke 11:24 says, "When the unclean spirit is gone out of a man, he walketh through dry places, seeking rest, and finding none, he saith, I will return unto my house whence I came out." We see that it is actually an unclean spirit that can enter into the physical body of a human being, whereas physical beings from another planet seems a lot less unlikely to be able to enter into the body of a human. Roger Morneau, later in his life in the early 90s, shared his testimony of how he was involved in a secret society of demon worshippers, and he said that a satanic high priest told him that the Grand Master, or Satan, had a deception plan for humanity, that demonic spirits would pose as visitors from far distant galaxies. He also said that it would be during a time of great calamity on the earth, and when New Age beliefs were running rampant.
Roger, when I was a teenager back in the 1970s, I remember a song that came out talking about the age of Aquarius. And since then, we've seen the development of the New Age, and I wondered if back when you were involved in spirit worship, if they talked about New Age at all.
Oh yes, it was a big thing that was coming up. One of the major deceptions of my days. And the priest told us, we talked quite a while, and then he said, could I have, I don't want to very investigate. He says the grain plain, the master's grain plain, for harvesting the nations, for harvesting the multitudes of the earth into his cause, just before the close of the great controversy between the person good and evil. So we continued, and after we expressed ourselves, we were deeply interested to know more about the activities of the Spirit. And he said, it's going to be done in a unique manner. This grain plants is going to take people are going to eat the stuff. Because it says, spirits will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies. They're coming to warn the inhabitants of planet Earth of the impending destruction of the planet, unless something seriously properly done to avoid it. And went on saying that they will claim to have out-of-body experiences. Are you familiar with out-of-body experiences?
I've read about it.
In other words, so a person's there's some persons are supposed to be able to, they believe in their immortal soul.
Astral soul projection.
Yes, right. Goes into different parts of the world and sees things and come back, and then they write all about it.
I've heard of that.
So, due to the fact that the millions of the earth people believe in people having an immortal soul, it has to be readily accepted when the spirits will, through a trance medium, converse with influential people.
Now, what is a trance medium?
It's a channeler today.
What is known today as a channeler?
Channeler, yeah. Shirley MacLaine's experience of getting involved with spiritism and with the inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies. I taped the whole thing in 3 hours.
And you were hearing the fulfillment of what this high priest had said 45 years ago.
Part of New Age practices involves being a channeler or a medium for spirits, as well as extraterrestrials. There are thousands of these sessions recorded where a person willfully allows their body to be inhabited by an alien being and to speak through them to give a message to humanity. This practice is becoming more and more popular among young people today as influencers of the world are promoting this idea.
Bunch of spaceships. There were like 5 to 7, and I don't know why I didn't try to take a picture of it. I just looked at it.
Kesha says that it was her interview with Demi Lovato that intrigued her into channeling alien beings.
With Demi Lovato, I loved the conversation we had because she just turned me on to a whole new. There are a couple books she mentioned and an app she mentioned that I immediately downloaded, and I made my family for Christmas. So that's all I want for Christmas is us all to meditate and try to channel extraterrestrials. And they're like, okay. So I'm trying to get all my friends and family into meditating the aliens to us. That's my new hobby because of Demi Lovato.
Thank you, Demi, for that.
Demi Lovato was featured in Christian Broadcast Network News as saying that being baptized in Israel filled the God-sized hole in my heart. In October of 2019, she posted a photograph of herself on Instagram being baptized in Israel with this post: I am an American singer. I was raised Christian and have Jewish ancestors. When I was offered an amazing opportunity to visit the places I had read about in the Bible growing up, I said yes. There is something absolutely magical about Israel. I've never felt such a sense of spirituality or connection to God, something I've been missing for a few years now. Spirituality is so important to me. To be baptized in the Jordan River, the same place that Jesus was baptized, I've never felt more renewed in my life. This trip has been so important for my well-being, my heart, and my soul. I'm grateful for the memories made and the opportunity to be able to fill the God-sized hole in my heart. Thank you for having me, Israel. Here, Demi Lovato shares on the Dr. Phil show of how she was prophesied over when she was a small child, about how she would use her musical gifts to reach thousands.
I went to church camp one time, and there was somebody who spoke in tongues over me. And I grew up Christian, so I wasn't familiar with this experience. And I remember them prophesizing over me, saying that one day you'll be a hero to tens of thousands of people. And luckily my platform has reached many more through social media and through my work, but it was that day that she said, you'll be a hero to thousands of people, and she said it would be through the arts. And I knew in that moment that if I ever were to make it as a singer, I kind of made this pact with God that said, God, if you give me the opportunity to live my dreams, I will pay you back, and I will live my life in hopes of helping others.
And here she is less than 2 years after being baptized in the Jordan River, telling Kesha that she can summon UFOs and channel aliens.
The frequency of the city was just super amazing, and it was super easy to make contact. We had been meditating all week, and then it only took us 10 minutes before we looked up and saw we saw a ship.
This New Age idea of being able to channel other beings is nothing new. It's in the book of 1 Samuel, where Saul goes to find a medium to speak to the dead. These New Age concepts have been creeping into the church for generations now, to the point where Demi Lovato claims to be a baptized Christian who can meditate and channel aliens. She's using her large platform to influence others into doing the same thing. This is exactly what Roger Morneau said that the Grand Master, or Satan's plan was for the world.
Spirits will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies. When the spirits will, through a transmedia, converse with influential people.
Many testimonies of people who claim to have been abducted by aliens describe these alien beings as looking like perfect angelic beings with blonde hair and blue eyes, gray frog-like creatures, and reptilians. I don't think it's coincidence that the first original alien to come to Earth from the heavens appeared as a talking reptilian creature, giving New Age doctrines such as you are God and you cannot die. This is the very same message that we hear given by these entities from testimonies of abductees.
When they see us worrying about things like death, they find it hilarious. And when they see us running around like headless chickens, just to create money, just to keep ourselves alive, and they know it's all a big joke, because you can't die anyway. And they say even if we did die, you can choose to come back from the death state.
Occultist Aleister Crowley was a self-professed wickedest man alive, and he drew a sketch of a demon that would often visit him. This demon introduced himself as Lamb, which is Tibetan for the way, an exact counterfeit of the true Lamb of God, who is the way, the truth, and the life. Now, we can clearly see that these entities are not visitors from other planets as they claim to be, but are actually demons seducing the world with doctrines of devils. Many will be deceived and fall away from the faith and give heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, just as Demi Lovato. This idea that these aliens are actually demons in disguise is not just a Christian idea. Jacques Vallée, the author of a book called Messengers of Deception, said this in an interview.
In your books, particularly your most recent book, Messengers of Deception, which is many years old, you suggest that UFOs are deliberately trying to manipulate our subconscious mind, to create a mythology in our culture about themselves, which is one of the reasons that they're both physical and concrete, yet very elusive at the same time. Do you still feel that way?
I think that from my own point of view, I'm going to be very disappointed if UFOs turn out to be nothing more than visitors from another planet.
And the so-called New Age. Listen to some of the confessions of the New Agers in their literature. Once you scrape past all the talk of spirituality and love and rainbows. New Age author, feminist and hater of Christianity, Barbara G. Walker writes in The Woman's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets, a 666, 666, was the magic number of the triple Aphrodite. She further compliments the number when she calls it the miraculous number 666. Speaking of the New Age to come, PhD Christopher Hyatt writes in Undoing Yourself,
this shit. Absolutely, our ancestors were aware of this shit. All right? So the Dogons, they got rock carvings of the pyramid mothership. They call it the Coronah, Ark of the Pure Earth. It's what the craft that brought the Nomo. And the dwelling of God coming down and living with humans on the earth. Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people. And he will dwell with them. They will be their people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. So I don't hear nothing about no rapture. I don't know where they got that thing from. Some of this idea that the way it's going to go down is like some light is going to come in and beam me up. The deceivers. Because the New Jerusalem says it's from
They're setting up a fake alien invasion. That's what they're doing.
Or could it be manipulated purposely by people who have the technology to simulate UFO sightings? And people say, well, of course not. Who would do a thing like that? Well, I would remind you that during the Watergate investigation, it was discovered that there was a plan originated in the White House to surface a submarine off the coast of Cuba and paint the second coming of Christ over the island of Cuba using hologram, which is well within our technology today.
Tom DeLonge, former frontman for bands Blink-182 and Angels and Airwaves, has gotten security clearance with the CIA and permission to share information on the subject with the public.
Communication role, it makes more
So they
sense.
would give some information to you and you would get it out to people. And now why wouldn't they do it themselves? Because they wouldn't have the same platform?
They don't
or
have
access to the same platform
They
you would
don't.
have?
They don't have a way to make a movie, a book. They don't know how. They don't have a way to make documentaries. They don't have a way to go on a big show like this and communicate with young people. They don't do that. I don't believe that some of the events happened on accident. You know, I think that there's been a lot of events that are on purpose. Some have been for show. Some have been for. I mean, there's a variety of reasons, but I think a lot of it is a control system that's really pushing humanity in a very specific direction.
Listen to this interesting statement he said in an interview on Coast to Coast AM.
But it can do all kinds of stuff. It seems to feed off of fear. It can be very dark and threatening at times. I remember laughing at people who would say, it's not aliens, it's demons. I couldn't laugh anymore. I'm not so sure about that.
There is a very, very strong link between what people think demons are from the Bible and other religions and the UFO phenomenon. And what you have is something that doesn't like man, period.
Carol Rosen was a partner and speaker for Werner von Braun, who was a leading figure in the development of rocket technology in Nazi Germany. She said in his last years of life, he started admitting some interesting things to her.
When I was a corporate manager of Fairchild Industries in 1974 through 77, I met the late Dr. Werner von Braun in early 74. Von Braun's purpose in life during the last years of his life, his dying years, was to educate the public and decision makers about why space-based weapons are a dumb, dangerous, destabilizing, too costly, unnecessary, unworkable, undesirable idea. The strategy that Werner von Braun taught me was that first the Russians are going to be considered to be the enemy. In fact, when I met him in 74, they were the enemy, the identified enemy. We were told that they had killer satellites. We were told that they were coming to get us and control us, that they were commies, that whole story. First, the Russians were the enemy against whom we're going to build space-based weapons. Then terrorists would be identified, and that was soon to follow. We heard a lot about terrorism. Then we were going to identify third world country crazies. We now call them nations of concern. But he said that would be the third enemy against whom we would be needing to build space-based weapons. And the next enemy was asteroids. Now at this point, he kind of chuckled the first time he said it. Asteroids, against asteroids we're going to build space-based weapons. So it was funny then. And the funniest one of all was against what he called aliens, extraterrestrials. That would be the final card. And over and over and over during the 4 years that I knew him and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And remember, Carol, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens. And all of it, he said, is a lie.
Lou Elizondo, former intelligence officer with Department of Defense, said that one of his higher-ups told him to stop investigating this topic because they already knew what it was.
This is a person I respected tremendously, very, very senior person. He's told me, he said, Lou, I want you to stop doing this. I said, okay, sir, I certainly can, but may I ask why? He said, well, we already know what it is. Now, at that moment, I honestly thought maybe it was our own technology. I was running up against some super uber secret sap, and they were telling me to stop. And I said, okay, sir, so it's ours? And he said, no, that's not what I'm saying. And he said, he asked me point blank, have you read your Bible lately? And I wasn't quite sure where he was going with that. And I said, well, sir, I think I know what it says. Where are you going with this? And he said, well, then you would know that these things are demonic, and you should not be pursuing them. Yeah. And he wasn't kidding. That's exactly how he felt.
So this is a Pentagon. This is a Department of Defense official saying, stop looking at UFOs because they're demonic?
Correct.
There have been hundreds, if not thousands, of people who have escaped an alien abduction experience by saying the powerful name of Jesus Christ.
Each one of them said,
Yes, sir, we've come across cases like this ourselves where they've been able to stop it using prayer or Jesus' name. I said, excuse me, how come we have never seen this documented? You're telling us otherwise, that it can't be done, it can't be stopped. First answer they usually gave us, we didn't know what to make of it. I would have been fine with that. The second answer is what puzzled me and got me kind of angry. Because it was that one that I want you to hear for sure. They said we couldn't go there because it might affect our credibility in the realm. Do I hear cover-up? Over the next 10 years, I have now worked with over 400 cases of people that have been able to stop the abduction experience in the name and authority of Jesus Christ. This is documented evidence.
We see that these beings have been visiting Earth all throughout history, and that they seem to defy physics by mysteriously appearing when someone meditates in a field or when their ship splits into two. Many have testified to seeing these beings walk through walls and even abduct them straight through the roof of their home. These entities always seem to appear around occultists or people involved in false religions or on hallucinogenic drugs such as DMT, and they are always sharing an antichrist, New Age message that you are gods that cannot die, and that Jesus is not who you think he is, but an ascended master who reached Christ consciousness and ascended back into the universe or to his mother ship. The Bible tells us in 1 Timothy 4:1-2, now the Spirit expressly says that in the latter times some will depart from the faith, giving heed to deceiving spirits and doctrines of demons, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their own conscience seared with a hot iron. Gods. The God.
Had witnessed what had occurred to the Amorites, and his people were terrified of the Israelites. As a result, the king decided to hire Balaam, son of Baal, to come and curse the people of Israel in order for Moab to defeat them. In an area where the false god Baal was worshipped, Balaam was essentially a prophet for hire. So Balak sent messengers to Balaam, requesting that he come and curse these people. I am aware that those you bless are blessed, while those you curse are cursed. Balaam apparently had a reputation for achieving results through the words he spoke. But the Lord had a perfect reputation. If he says something will happen, it will happen. This is significant because God had promised Abraham many years before that he would make him into a great nation. He would bless those who bless Abraham and curse anyone who treats Abraham with contempt. Genesis chapter 12, verses 2-3. These promises would be extended to Abraham's blood descendants, the Israelites. Balak's plan was thus doomed from the start. If God is determined to bless you, no one's words can override him. The elders of Moab and Gideon left, taking with them the fee for divination. When they came to Balaam, they told him what Balak had said. Spend the night here, Balaam said to them, and I will report back to you the answer the Lord gives me. So the Moabite officials stayed with him. God came to Balaam and asked, who are these men with you? Balaam said to God, Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab, sent me this message. A people that has come out of Egypt covers the face of the land. Now come and put a curse on them for me. Perhaps then I will be able to fight them and drive them away. But God said to Balaam, do not go with them. You must not put a curse on those people, because they are blessed. Numbers chapter 22, verses 7-12. Balak dispatched elders from Moab and Midian to Balaam with divination fees in hand. It's worth noting that despite practicing God-forbidden forms of sorcery, Balaam refused to accompany these men until he received a response from the Lord. The implication appears to be that he intended to do whatever God told him to do, regardless of how good the money was, which he did at every point in the story. So that night God graciously condescended to appear to this sorcerer, who generally was not committed to living in a manner pleasing to him. See Revelations chapter 2, verse 14, and asked, Who are these men with you? Numbers chapter 22, verse 9. Revelation chapter 2, verse 14. Nevertheless, I have a few things against you. There are some among you who hold to the teaching of Balaam, who taught Balak to entice the Israelites to sin, so that they ate food sacrificed to idols and committed sexual immorality. Balaam relayed what he had been asked to do to Israel, and God warned him not to curse his people, whom he had blessed. The next morning, Balaam got up and said to Balak's officials, Go back to your own country, for the Lord has refused to let me go with you. So the Moabite officials returned to Balak and said, Balaam refused to come with us. Then Balak sent other officials, more numerous and more distinguished than the first. They came to Balaam and said, This is what Balak son of Zippor says. Do not let anything keep you from coming to me, because I will reward you handsomely and do whatever you say. Come and put a curse on these people for me. But Balaam answered them, Even if Balak gave me all the silver and gold in his palace, I could not do anything great or small to go beyond the command of the Lord my God. Now spend the night here so that I can find out what else the Lord will tell me. That night God came to Balaam and said, Since these men have come to summon you, go with them, but do only what I tell you. Numbers chapter 22, verses 13 through 20. Balaam did as he was told, and sent his guests away empty-handed. But Balak would not accept no for an answer. He sent officials who were more numerous and higher in rank than the others, promising an even greater reward if Balaam would curse Israel as requested. Balaam's donkey. Balaam got up in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the Moabite officials. But God was very angry when he went, and the angel of the Lord stood in the road to oppose him. Balaam was riding his donkey, and his two servants were with him. Numbers chapter 22, verses 21 to 22. While Balaam and his donkey were on their way to meet Balak, they encountered God, who was so enraged that Balaam was going to Moab, that he appeared in the road as the angel of the Lord to oppose him. In 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 15, we learn what prompted this unexpected reaction. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 15, New International Version. They have left the straight way and wandered off to follow the way of Baal, son of Bezer, who loved the wages of wickedness. It says Balaam loved the wages of wickedness. So, despite his claims to follow the Lord's instructions, which he did when it suited him, it appears that Balaam was a mercenary prophet at heart. Though God had given Balaam permission to accompany the elders of Moab, God knew that the man had no regard for Israel and was willing to curse Israel for the reward, despite God's instructions. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with a drawn sword in his hand, it turned off the road into a field. Balaam beat it to get it back on the road. Then the angel of the Lord stood in a narrow path through the vineyards with walls on both sides. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it pressed close to the wall, crushing Balaam's foot against it. So he beat the donkey again. Then the angel of the Lord moved on ahead and stood in a narrow place where there was no room to turn, either to the right or to the left. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it lay down under Balaam, and he was angry and beat it with his staff. Then the Lord opened the donkey's mouth, and it said to Balaam, What have I done to you to make you beat me these 3 times?